This year, unprecedented challenges are decimating some of the most beloved dining spots across the nation. Rising costs, labor shortages, and changing consumer habits, each one alone could strain even the most resilient businesses. But when combined, they create a devastating perfect storm, wiping out chains and family-owned favorites alike. Americans are changing their dining habits, and it's hitting the industry really hard. With inflation squeezing every dollar, more people are choosing to eat at home, leaving restaurants across the nation fighting for survival. Visits to sit-down restaurants dropped nearly 5% in just 1 year, and even the most popular chains in the country are feeling the pain. Take New York City, for example. Over 40 bars and restaurants shut down in just 2 months, while others struggle to stay open, still reeling from the fallout of 2020. All across the nation, empty seats are becoming the new norm. As we count down the 15 restaurants most at risk, brace yourself. Some of these names may surprise you, and others might be places you thought would stand the test of time. These companies are being forced to close locations, struggling with financial pressure and grappling with a consumer landscape that may never be the same. Stay tuned to see which familiar names could disappear next. Without further ado, here are 15 restaurant chains being wiped out by a perfect storm in 2024. 1. Dicky's BBQ Pit. If there's one lesson the restaurant industry is teaching us in 2024, it's that past victories do not promise a future. Even the giants aren't safe. Take Dicky's BBQ Pit, once the country's largest barbecue chain, now teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Nearly 100 locations are closing, slicing a staggering 19% off its American footprint. The warning signs have been flashing since 2018, when the chain had to shut down 205 locations, casting a long shadow over its future. This year, the crisis deepened. By the second quarter, Dickies saw its sharpest franchise decline in years, with operators closing 85 units due to mounting losses. Franchisees scrambling to stay afloat are pointing fingers at the company itself, accusing it of forcing through unreasonable demands that strangled their businesses. Now, 97 corporate-owned locations are bracing for closure, leaving communities across the country without the warm, smoky meals they once relied on. The flame that kept Dickies alive seems to be flickering dangerously low. 2. Shake Shack. Shake Shack, one of the leading burger chains in America, is now facing the harsh reality of 2024, a year when rising costs and slowing consumer activity are threatening its very foundation. In a painful move, the chain will close several California locations, citing the state's steep $20 per hour minimum wage for fast food workers as an unsustainable burden. But California isn't alone in feeling the pinch. Shake Shack's presence in Texas and Ohio is also under the knife, though the company remains silent on just how many locations will soon be lost. As ingredients, energy, and staffing costs skyrocket, even an icon like Shake Shack is realizing that no chain is safe from the economic storm sweeping the nation. 3. Oar Pan. The slow crumble of Oar Pan is a stark reminder that even the most cherished names are not immune to hard times. Over the past year, this bakery cafe chain has shuttered nearly half its locations. Founded in 1978, Oar Pan saw a rapid rise, adding over 200 locations during its peak expansion in the early 2010s, with a particular concentration in the New York area. But the story took a darker turn. After the pandemic hit, the company's financial health has significantly deteriorated, leading to its sale to Ampex Brands in 2022. Now under new ownership, the chain is retreating, closing doors at airports, college campuses, and other venues as part of a drastic rebranding. A chain that used to thrive across 15 states is shrinking fast, leaving loyal customers wondering if they've had their last taste of Oar Pan. 4. White Castle. The White Castle is that famous burger joint that inspired grocery store freezer food, the Harold and Kumar movie, and captured the nostalgia of generations. The chain was founded in 1921. At its peak had almost 1,000 locations across the country. But the growth of other burger chains, especially fast food giants like Burger King, McDonald's, has increased the competition in the industry. White Castle's sluggish customer service did not impress the public. For years, customers have been complaining about the quality of the food served by the restaurant, from soggy burger buns to a lack of condiments to small portion size. This has caused the number of locations to drop to just 345. Now, with wallets tightening and fewer people dining out, White Castle's future hangs by a thread. Slim profits and dwindling sales have forced the company to introduce desperate menu discounts. But even that may not be enough to stave off disaster. As if the chain's challenges weren't daunting enough, it's now staring down a monstrous $17 billion lawsuit over alleged privacy violations involving fingerprint data in Illinois. A payout of this magnitude could be the final blow, wiping out this iconic burger pioneer for good. 5. Ruths Chris. Now, Ruths Chris, the popular steakhouse chain, is quietly slipping from its former glory. Behind closed doors, the company has been closing dozens of locations, struggling to balance its finances as soaring meat prices and rising labor costs bleed profits dry. With U.S. cattle production at historic lows, the cost of steak has skyrocketed, giving the company no other choice than to close unprofitable restaurants. Since 2020, Ruths Chris has lost nearly 20% of its locations, including previously celebrated landmarks in San Francisco and New York, now gone for good. And the wave of closures is spreading, reaching into smaller cities across the nation. Adding to the turmoil, a failed loan deal has left the company in a precarious financial position, casting a shadow over its future on the U.S. market. 6. BurgerFi. Now, BurgerFi is certainly experiencing its fair share of financial woes in 2024, facing troubles that seem to be stacking up fast. The gourmet burger chain has seen a sharp 13% drop in same-store sales and a 6% decline in revenue during just the first quarter of the year. Blaming bad weather in critical markets and a challenging consumer environment, BurgerFi is struggling to hold its ground. In a desperate bid to stay in business, the chain has closed 8 underperforming restaurants in the last month alone, with CEO Carl Bachman calling it a necessary step in right-sizing the business. But with numbers like these, the future for BurgerFi looks anything but secure. 7. Buca di Beppo. The slow decline of Buca di Beppo has been unfolding for years, and 2024 is proving no different. This family-style Italian chain was known for bustling tables and generous portions, but is now closing down dozens of underperforming locations for good. California, Utah, Michigan, New York among the region's hardest hit, as confirmed by a company representative to Eat This, Not That. While Buca regrets having to take this difficult action, these restaurants were unable to recover from the damage caused by the pandemic and other market pressures, they said. A sad announcement for fans of the chain. But the closures were only the beginning. Just a week later, Buca filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, weighed down by declining sales, surging costs, staffing shortages, and a host of financial struggles. 8. Denny's. Even the beloved dining joint Denny's, famous for its around-the-clock service and comforting menu, has been suffering with the shifting tides of 2024 as changing consumer habits and declining revenue hurt the chain's profits. The company has announced plans to close 150 locations in the coming months. A grim sign of the times for this 71-year-old establishment, which reported disappointing third-quarter earnings and saw its stock plunge nearly 50% this year. Already, about 50 locations have gone dark, a staggering 10% of the chain's footprint in 2024 alone, and the closures are far from over. Many of the next locations on the chopping block are simply too old to be remodeled or are situated in areas where profit has become impossible, explained Executive Vice President Steve Dunn. 9. Wendys. Your local Wendys may no longer be open in the coming months. The fast food giant recently announced a second wave of closures, adding to the 30 locations that have already gone dark in 2024. During a recent earnings call, Wendys CFO Gunther Plosch revealed that the company plans to shut down more than 100 additional restaurants across the nation this fall and winter. Despite being the second largest fast food chain in the U.S., the brand has been grappling with soaring operational costs, supply chain disruptions, and a highly competitive market where rising stars and local options are edging in on its territory. Plagued by shrinking profit margins and the challenge of maintaining quality amid inflation, Wendys is finding it more difficult to balance growth with profitability. In the next few months, several communities that have relied on their local Wendys for decades will witness the loss of these familiar red-roofed spots. 10. Panchos Mexican Buffet. Now, if you're craving a taste of nostalgia, it might be the time to visit Panchos Mexican Buffet. While you still can, there was a time when this chain was a big business in the southern and southeastern states. The El Paso-born brand was a staple in the 80s and 90s, hundreds of locations starting Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. But its glory days are long behind it, I'm afraid. Since its founding in 1958, Panchos has gone downhill, facing poor stock performance and decreasing profits in the 21st century. Attempts to revive the business, including adding an express element, fell short, and one by one, its locations faded away. As of 2024, only 2 locations remain in its Texas heartland, one near Arlington, the other in Fort Worth. But even those last outposts feel fragile. It wouldn't be surprising if Panchos Mexican Buffet doesn't see the year's end. 11. Subway. This year, hundreds of Subway restaurants across 11 states have abruptly shut their doors, leaving communities and employees reeling. The sandwich giant has closed more than 6,500 locations since 2016, about 1 out of every 4 Subway restaurants in the U.S., averaging over 900 closures each year. But the latest wave of shutdowns has raised fresh concerns about the company's stability, as employees were given no warning that their restaurants would suddenly stop operating. In Oregon alone, 23 Subway locations were shuttered, leaving over 200 workers without jobs in an instant. Joanne Kennedy, a manager at one of the closed locations, described the shock to KPTV, saying, "No warning, no heads up, no transparency, completely and totally blindsided every one of us." Over the past 10 months, a net total of 443 Subway locations have vanished from the American landscape. For a chain as widespread as Subway, the silence around these closures is as unsettling as the closures themselves. 12. Jimmy John's. For decades, Jimmy John's was seen as a booming sandwich chain, known for its fresh bread and fast delivery. But recently, it has been hitting a rough patch that's hard to ignore. Owned by Inspire Brands LLC, the fast food giant's long been a favorite among American consumers, with its unique bread options and a variety of sandwich flavors that drew in loyal fans across the nation. Unfortunately, the cracks are beginning to show. In the past 12 months alone, Jimmy John's has lost 166 locations, nearly 10% of its footprint, leaving industry insiders questioning the financial health of a brand once seen as unstoppable. The recent closures are an indication of the problems wrecking the company behind the scenes, as high food costs, Fierce competition and shifting consumer preferences have put tremendous pressure on the chain, with more people seeking out healthier options or budget-conscious alternatives. Jimmy John's is finding it difficult to maintain the dominance it once enjoyed. Built on speed and simplicity, the risks brought on by shuttered stores, shrinking profits are a troubling sign of what might lie ahead. 13. Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, KFC has long been synonymous with crispy golden fried chicken and Southern-style comfort food. The chain is one of the world's largest fast food companies and a flagship brand of Yum Brands Incorporated, having served millions of customers across the globe. But even this fried chicken giant is feeling the heat in 2024. Over the past year, KFC has closed 156 locations across the U.S. That is an alarming trend for a brand that used to be one of the strongest in the United States. KFC is also planning to streamline its menu, aiming to cut costs and simplify operations in the face of rising ingredient prices and also increased labor costs. Now, this move isn't just about cutting corners, it's a survival tactic in an ultra-competitive market. With fewer menu options and locations, fans of Colonel's original recipe may find it harder to get their fried chicken fix. 14. Baskin Robbins. Owned by Inspire Brands LLC, the adored ice cream chain Baskin Robbins has been a go-to spot for sweet treats and imaginative flavors for decades. Known for its 31 flavors promise, the multinational company has brought excitement to ice cream lovers around the world. Sadly, conditions in 2024 have been chilling for Baskin Robbins. In 2022, it boasted 2,550 locations in the U.S., but this year, the chain is set to lose 297 locations, a substantial reduction that signals deeper issues. Now, behind the scenes, the high cost of dairy, chocolate, fruit, and other key ingredients, as well as stiff competition from artisanal and local brands, have cut into the chain's profits. With fewer consumers willing to splurge on premium ice cream amid tighter budgets, Baskin Robbins is losing its ability to maintain its once dominant footprint. In other words, fans may need to savor their next scoop because finding a local Baskin Robbins could soon be harder than ever. And 15, it's Dunkin. Prepare to say goodbye to your local Dunkin as the coffee and donut giant finalizes the closure of 800 locations, a move that began quietly at the end of 2020. For fans, this might be the biggest shakeup since the chain dropped donuts from its name, and the implications go beyond what people imagine. This streamlining effort aligns Dunkin with other major fast food players like Starbucks and McDonald's, which have also slimmed down their footprints recently. Initially, the closures focused on locations inside gas stations, spots often seen as lower traffic and less profitable. But Dunkin's recent second quarter earnings report painted a more troubling picture, with U.S. store sales plunging by 18.7%. This steep decline has forced executives to make tougher cuts, announcing that an additional 350 locations will permanently close in the months ahead. In total, by the end of this year, 800 Dunkin' stores will have disappeared from American streets since 2020, leaving countless communities without their local coffee stop. At the end of the day, even the most beloved and established restaurant chains are not safe from the financial storms brewing in 2024. From rising costs to changing consumer habits, these brands are facing challenges that could reshape the dining landscape in America. The familiar places we once took for granted are vanishing, leaving customers with fewer options and the reminder of just how quickly things can change. If you have a favorite spot from our list, consider visiting while you still can. Show your support, share your memories, and maybe even savor a final meal there. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest financial challenges hitting the dining industry. Let's keep an eye on these trends because sometimes that last visit might happen sooner than you think. Thank you for watching.